All right. Welcome. We're going to go ahead and get started on managing state information. So we'll start with a little bit of PowerPoint first. It's been a while since I've played with PHP, so there may be some stopping and some pauses. And we'll see if we can't get all the way to getting at least started after the PowerPoints, getting you a start on your assignment. So let's begin with the PowerPoint and talk a little bit about managing state information. And here's kind of where all this kind of comes in. There's actually three different ways of getting information back and forth to different web pages. You'll get information from one web page and want to send it to the information or to another web page. And those three ways are to use the old school query strings. Now, I don't know if you've ever been out on web and you get something like a website, and then at the end of the website they have a question mark and then a bunch of gobbledygook. That is actually a query string, and what it is it's just a cheat on how to send key value pairs of information through the URL of the web page that you are actually accessing. So we know the browser knows that you're trying to reach this site, but after this question mark is data that page that you're going to may use or may not use. Now, this is very old school. It's still, decent technology, and a lot of people still use it. Sessions are probably better, or cookies if you can take advantage of those for managing information. Also, sessions have quite a bit more security built into it, so that you're not just chunking your data all over the place in a query string where everybody can see it, because often I found websites where I could actually tweak the information up here to get stuff that I shouldn't be getting. So query strings are kind of, hey, but you still need to know about them. So the different state informations are those three things: the query strings, cookies, and sessions. There's the fourth one, which I think is absolutely rubbish, is the hidden form fields, which is it's even worse than the query strings. But I mean, the query strings are not as secure. The hidden form fields are just, I kind of consider them as a little bit, I don't know, lazy. Sessions are pretty much where you want to put your information as much as possible, especially if you're doing a website that requires quite a bit of security, which like Facebook, stuff like that. And cookies are good. So mostly what you'd be using is cookies and sessions. So I'm not gonna spend too much time on the hidden form fields, or we'll talk a little bit about query strings when we get there. But hidden form fields we're going to blast right by. And then I want to get into actually giving you a start on your 9-1 assignment. So state, storing information through websites has always been hard, because they always have to refresh, and they're a read-only type of technology. So when it was designed, they said that it was designed to be stateless, meaning that no data could be stored when somebody went to a website. It was just, it was read only. So there's no way that you could have one web page and get information like in a form and then send it to another web page. And so what they did to fix that initially was query strings. And that way you could get the data in a form field from one website and then send that data through the query string to the other website. Now, when I say site, I'm actually talking about web page on the same site usually. So that means just, how do I get data back and forth between different web pages appropriately and securely? And the answer is sessions. But the first implementation or the first couple implementations was with query strings and hidden form fields. So why was this a problem? Well, duh, you use Facebook. that takes a lot of information from you and posts it on the web. So and of course here's the other big one. Shopping carts, duh. It's like people wanted to take advantage of this, and Jeff Bezos did it wonderfully. He started with selling used books in his garage with a website, and he built that into what we have today because he took advantage of the web-based technology that was just emerging at the time, and this was like in the early 2000s, right around there. So the shopping carts to store order information was extreme. It made a lot of millions. Well, it made at least one billionaire. Well, probably two, if you take his wife. But in any case, it was an issue. So query strings, hidden form fields was the first implementation. Then we got into cookies and sessions, I wanted to give you a good example of a query string, but I'm thinking, you know what? Let's just do a quick Google for it and talk about it. I'm not even going to talk about hidden form fields, by the way. Okay, so a query string is kind of here's an example of how a key value pair would work. You would have the website location and then the question mark, and then here would be your key name, and the value that's stored in name is ferret. And you could send multiple key value pairs. Name equals ferret and color equals purple. But here's the problem is the query string couldn't handle certain things because, a web URL does not take a space. So you couldn't put a space anywhere for this data. So that was a big problem. And there's also other special characters that a URL can't handle that has to be encoded in a query string. So you actually have the ability to code and encode query strings. But you guys all did this in JavaScript. So we don't need to spend a super amount of time with this. So I'm going to go ahead and move on from query strings. And let's go ahead and head on down to cookies, I believe. Okay, and we're definitely going away from the hidden input fields. That's just horrible. Okay, so get and post auto globals. Yeah, you can do that. You can do that for your hidden form attributes if you wanted to. So query strings. Here we go. This is where we want to be. Cookies. Okay, so the problem with query strings is, hey, it's not something that's actually a little bit more permanent. So what that means is that after you use the query string from one web page to another, it's lost. It's not stored forever unless you store it in that other web page on the disk or something. So we wanted to have the capability to store information about a session, and also something that could be a little bit more lengthier than, or something that would last longer than a query string. And of course, it turned into something totally different because now it's just all about tracking you, which is just a nightmare. It was never intended for that crap, but that's okay. So cookies are used just universally now everywhere, to keep track of, a lot of things about what you're doing on a website so that when you come back to it, it has the same, maybe sometimes the same look and feel, etc. And then, of course, the information they get from you. So when you do a cookie, I know that you guys did this in JavaScript, so we're not going to hit it too hard and heavy. But you will use the time function. And the time function is, so the PHP time function what it does is it gives you the time as it's a Unix timestamp. So it's actually the epoch value. And so that means that the time function gives you a huge number, which is milliseconds from 1970. Yeah, crazy. So that's how computers tell time. So whenever you get a timestamp and you want to see what day, time, and day of the week, date and time, you got to take this one huge number, like 200 gazillion or whatever, and from that 200 gazillion milliseconds from 1970, you actually get the date and time of that something is more human readable. So let me show you a little bit more on that epoch value. The epoch, you can see it kind of type it, and here's that huge number, but this is in seconds. So there's actually 3 more numbers at the end of that, because it's 6,000 milliseconds, 8,000, 9,000. So it's 1,000 milliseconds from 1 second to another second. So that number is actually, boom. So that 4,000 there, that represents 4 seconds of time that is elapsed. If we have 5,000 in there, then it represents 5 seconds of time. And you can see it's counting up 1 second at a time, but it's not showing you the last bits of the millisecond. All the digits that you need to refer to the epoch in milliseconds from 1970, because it's just showing seconds from 1970 here. And that's what we use to deal with cookies and setting them and expiring them, is that epoch timestamp. So when you build up, or when you use a cookie, you're going to set the cookie, give it a name. You can decide to send it whether it expires or not. If you don't send it whether it expires, then it will only be existent for the current session of the browser, or as soon as the browser is, it's only for that time that the browser runs. You can skip the expires and secure arguments by assigning a 0 here, and you can skip the value, path, and domain with an empty string. So you don't actually have to put all that information in. What you would want is just the name and the value, key value. So you want to store the information. This stuff is important for other reasons that you may need, but you don't have to actually have them. So we can call the set cookie function to set a cookie, and that information is actually stored on the browser, so that when you go to the other page, it's received from the browser. And that's what kind of cookies work. That's how cookies work. Here's the thing about working with managing state information always, is that special characters are not handled very well unless you use sessions. Now, here's what's nice about PHP is the fact that they have some specific encoding and decoding routines that you can do for your cookie information, so that you can use special characters. Okay, so we got name and value arguments for our set cookie function. So here's an example. Here's our set cookie, key, value. Now you notice that they're not setting the expiration or anything. So this is a very temporary cookie that only lasts for as long as the current browser session. And all it's going to do is hold this information in the browser during its current session, and you access it by using that first name, key value. or the key of the cookie. Okay, so here's some other examples to set cookies for different key value pairs. And you can use use an actual, you can use an array with cookies. Here's an example of using the array. So you can use the subscript, the brackets, and put your key in the array that you're declaring. And the same array can have another keyed value, and so forth. So the idea is, cookies are done with key value pairs, which is really kind of cool. I mean, they're hash tables is what we call them in computer science. Python calls them a dictionary. There's other, other implementations of hash tables. But hash tables are the, key value pairs are kind of the simplest and quickest way of dealing with arrays, because it gets beyond the whole indexing issues in the lower levels of working with, starting the array at 0, ending it at n-1, and that stuff. So you set up a hash table with a dictionary or key value pairs that is an array itself, but it's managed for you, and you use it with the key value pairs. Okay, so here is an example of setting a cookie to expire. Now this takes the current epoch time and adds 3.6 seconds onto it. So that means that this cookie would expire 3.6 seconds after the time that it was set. At least I'm pretty sure that plus 3600, let's look at the set cookie function and let's get a better understanding. Set cookie of those arguments. Okay, so the one that we're looking at is especially this expires. So basically, it's a timestamp, and the way we add it is by adding the number of seconds before the cookie should expire. So when you call the time plus 60, I guess maybe, okay, so they do it in seconds instead of milliseconds. I thought so. Okay, so that's actually, let's go back to that. That's actually, I believe, 3,600 seconds. Possibly. We can look a little bit more on it, but, hey, set the cookie. It looks like we do time plus 60 times 60 times 24 times 30. Oh, maybe it is milliseconds. Look at that. So that's actually, if we do a plus of 60 times 60, that's a huge number, times 24 times 30. Okay, so it's seconds, and so it is 3,600 seconds from what I'm seeing here. And if you give it a huge number, which 60 times 60 times 24 times 30 is going to be a big number, you can set something to expire in like 30 days. So you're dealing with that time, that epoch timestamp that represents milliseconds from 1970, and you're dealing with seconds when you add to it. So we actually, you're dealing not with seconds, you're dealing with milliseconds, like I initially said. So yeah, that's 3.6 seconds. If you want that to be a day, you would take 1,000, or would it be just 60? Maybe it is seconds. Yeah, it is seconds, because why are they using 60 over here? Because they're taking 60 times 60 times 24 times 30. Yeah, they're adding it all up. Okay. So, yeah, you guys look into a little bit more. I just don't, hey, when you get set a cookie, you can look into, a bit more, but I'm pretty sure it's seconds. So now let's get into our PowerPoint again. And we have our path. So that means that we can use a cookie that can be shared across a whole web page, or actually a whole domain or a server. So if you are in a specific web page and you set up that path, you can actually share this cookie to other websites. There'll be other web pages it's available to. You really won't be using that too much. And this one is for sharing. The path is for sharing across multiple pages on the same website. This one is for allowing the cookie to be shared across multiple different websites, such as google.com, gosselin.com, etc. Okay, now we have the secure argument that can be set so that you only allow the cookies to be working if they are inside or working inside of a secure or an HTTPS website, a secure one that uses encryption. It uses keyed encryption. So this one you may choose to use depending on what you're working with. If you're working within a site that does offer HTTPS, which most of them do now with forms, so that, you know, when you send your data in, it's at least encrypted when it goes from one endpoint to the next endpoint, and it's secure from a man-in-the-middle attack. So you can assign that value 1 right over here to indicate that it's going to be encrypted and secure. Okay, so now we can get into, hey, what cookies are available to us? How do we read some cookies? And then we've got our cookie auto global. So we can actually print our cookie. We use the key name, and what's going to actually happen here is the value will be printed. It goes to the auto global cookie. It goes to the key that we set up called first name, and that key value, that value will be printed when we echo it to the screen. Okay, so here's an example of getting, reading cookies, setting cookies. Here we set a cookie, set a cookie, set a cookie. Then we say, hey, do we have cookies? Yeah, we got a cookie. And then, hey, do we got another cookie? Do we got another cookie? So we use that isSet function to determine, hey, do we actually have this data? And if we do, then it just, outputs that information. So isSet is fairly useful in a lot of ways. I'm sure you already know that by now. And here's an example, but this is an example of using cookies with an array. Now remember, these cookies aren't set with expiration, so they're only available for the current running or session ID. So now we use the key professional 0 is Don. Then we say at location 1 in the array, Gosselin at location 2. So when we use it, we're going to use the key, which is the array itself. And then when we grab that array, we go to the 0th item. Get the array, first item, and so forth. Kind of interesting syntax and semantics compared to some other languages. So here is 1. Okay, yeah, it is number of seconds, so that's 3,600 seconds, not 3.6 milliseconds. Excuse me, guys. It takes a little while to get back into PHP. Okay, so we got the time function. We can set one to expire right off the bat by subtracting it. If we have something that has a negative value for expiration, it deletes the cookie. Okay, now this is the way you should be doing things, which is with sessions. Sessions can have their own issues. Yeah, of course, spyware can grab a hold of that information. But here's what's nice about sessions is you can control over how much time that session is available. So, like for instance, if you're doing like building your own Facebook, you would log in and then you would have a session that would say you're validated for this time span. And if you ever notice that when you go to like your bank and you log into your bank and you try to come back and immediately forces you to re-log in, that's because your session timed out. So this is pretty much the most, for security wise, this is the thing that you must use if you're doing some kind of website that requires you to log in and validate your credentials. And once they've logged in and validated those credentials, you set a session ID, and that session ID, when it's gone, that means that they need to re-up their credentials and re-log in. Just like when you go to the bank and you log in and look at the money you have and say, yeah, I can go out to eat. I got enough money, and you come back later to see how much money you left after you drank way too much and bought everybody around. Your session ID is gone. You got to re-authenticate. That's just, that's, you guys have been using it this whole time, and, now you're going to be starting to actually develop it and work with it. Okay, so when you start a session, you just say session start, and it's just an automated number that's actually generated for you, and that session that you're going to want to, you can store it if you want to compare it when you're allowing things to be changed on the database after a login for validation. But usually, often, once a user is validated, the session ID will expire when they leave the website or shut down the browser and start it back up. That session ID will need to be regenerated. But it'll stay fairly current as long as you're still working on the web page. So often what you'll have is your session ID, you will continually update the time stamp on it, especially if you have a website like a bank account where you want to make sure that, hey, as soon as this individual no longer is having activity checking their bank account, then that session ID is allowed to, expire. But as long as they are checking their balance, clicking here, doing that, you would keep your session ID up to date before it expires. Okay, so we got your save path where you can store your session IDs and your text files. And that is something that you can put in your php.ini file for your session IDs. And the session start, you do your session start, and then you can send information to and for using the session global. So the session ID is really important for you to keep track of and store in either a cookie, store it in a query string, or whatnot when you're going back and forth in your website, because that is how you deal with the security, because that session ID you want to re-up or you want to store, and then whenever you need to look for validation, you want to see and make sure that those session IDs match. Okay, so this is an example of starting a session, and then we assign a session ID. Now look at here. This is an example of passing the session ID to another website using the query string. Hey, yeah, you can do that, but I would probably, that's probably not the best place to do it in a query string. So now we have the ability to work with the auto global. So the auto global will be what's used to, well, let's get into here. Here's an example of working with a session ID and using the session auto global to store information. So you start your session, you set your stuff up, and then what you can do is once that session ID you've authenticated your session ID, you can use that session ID for working with the database and allowing changes to the database you're working with. Okay, so here is an example of just using the session auto global for key value pairs for information storage instead of the other ones that we just talked about. Here's an example of sending the session ID that you're currently on to another web page. Now, this is an example of working with the session start, and essentially we check to see if there's data in the session, and if there's data in the session, then we print the data. So that's just a pretty simple example. Okay, now here's where we start with deleting a session. So we can restart the session, because what that does is it makes a new ID that wouldn't be stored in your database for the current session ID or anywhere else. You can reinitialize the session, or you can use the session destroy function to delete the session. Use the destroy one. Okay, so here's an example. We have the session start. We then do a session destroy. Now, this is just kind of an example of setting the session global to some values, whatever. The session global is an array itself. Okay. Maintaining state information is important. Being able to pass information to and from different forms or different pages with hidden forms, cookies, or the query string. That's one way of passing that information from one web page to another web page. So if you have one web page for registering and another web page for getting that information, what I usually like to do is I like to set up like what you used in JavaScript, where you set up one page to both get the information and process the information. We call those same page processing or whatever. But you wouldn't do it from one page to another page. You would set up one page to do both, getting the information and processing the information. You can set up cookies to store your information with key value pairs with expirations. And then we have our sessions IDs. This is how you will get a session ID, and you'll store that in the database once somebody's been validated. And then you will decide, depending on how you want to allow somebody to actually view some specific data from your database, on whether their session ID is current and matches from what is stored based on their most recent login activity. If it's not, the session ID is not the same as when the user logged in, then that means it's either timed out, somebody else started up the website or the browser and went to the web page. But there are times when, session ID, you use that to determine when somebody needs to actually log in again, revalidate. And of course, you can store the session ID in all the different mechanisms that we kind of discussed. Okay, where are we at on time on things? Because I think before we go to part 2 here, I'm going to go ahead and stop it and take a break. Okay, here's where we're going to take a break. We talked a little bit about things. I just want to give you a start on 9.1. So I'm going to give you a start on 9.1, and then we'll call it. Okay. One thing real quick before you start. I've actually, because, well, it's kind of silly having to type all this database code into from the book and get it to work. But not only that, the complexity is a little bit more than that, and that's because the library that this is based on is good, but it's an older library for MySQL. And they've updated the MySQL library to MySQL I. So those functions are a little bit more secure. They still have the same mechanism, so the code is still going to work with some porting. And it's fairly often, that you'll get code that doesn't work. And I've got a few notes on some of these through the assignments. But what I've done is I've just went ahead and posted the solutions for chapters 8, 9, and 10. And this means that you're not actually really given the answer. You're given the code to port, because I did that because of the porting that you have to do, and it's actually a good exercise in some of the things that you're gonna run into when you get out there. I have my WAMP running, and I've got a project set up, and so I've gone into the folder here for the solution. And at the reinforcement exercise 9.1, we have our cancel selection and available opportunities. I'm going to go ahead and just grab these, and I'm going to copy them over into the folder that I'm working with. I've shown you how to set up a project, so you're good on that. I set up a project in NetBeans right here. And I'm going to go ahead and put that code in for us to play with. And that's what we're going to work with. Now, we're going to have some database stuff that we probably have to do. I'm going to get you kind of, going in the right direction and then leave you to it. So we have the source code available to us here. And I'm going to go ahead and load it up into the project. I'm pretty sure it should have come up with those files, but I may need to add them. Those actually should have updated automatically inside of the browser, inside of here, but it looks like it doesn't like me. Okay. Alrighty, we're up to our first problem. Okay, let's see here. Something is not allowing these files to go into my project. I'm going to pause right off the bat. I'll be back. Okay, simple thing. I just had to reload NetBeans. So we have our initial set of instructions from the book here, and I'm looking at exercise 9.1. Create a new document, and this document is going to be called available. It looks like available opportunities website. So that would be this guy right here, and this is what your initial goal is to get working. And we're going to go ahead and play with it, examine it, and then I'm going to leave you to it. So let's start with just getting something to work. Or let's examine this and see what we have. I'm going to go ahead and zoom in on it. It looks like we're setting a cookie, and we're using a last request date. So every time we re-up, it looks like we're setting up a cookie for, we're setting up a date. So that's going to be set later on. Okay, so if it's set, then we know that it looks like we're reloading the page. Okay, now here's where we get to our database. This is what we're going to have to port to get to you to work. And guys, by the way, this shouldn't be done this way. I may have talked about it before, but you should actually create all your DB connection as strings hidden into a file that's not accessible in the www directory. But we're learning, and it's best to start with as easy as possible to get something that works. And that's kind of where we're at with this. So once we've connected, that we are able to connect to the database, then we're going to query that database for some information. So that's the first thing we need to set up. But we've also got to actually get ready for logging into the database. We need to port this to MySQL Vi. And I've got some instructions for that, actually. The instructions I have, I believe, are in the assignment, if I remember right. I think they are. Where are you? Okay. Oh, it looks like we've got a few corrections. That's fine. I gave you porting information, it looks like in chapter 8. So we have different types of MySQL error or conversions that we need to do to MySQL Vi. So when we go over here to this database, the first thing that we're going to have to do is just make sure that MySQL Connect doesn't have something that's ported for MySQL Vi Connect. So we're going to test that and let's see. MySQL I Connect. Is there a MySQL I Connect? Let's look for it. MySQL I Connect. Okay, so there is the MySQL I Connect function that we're probably going to have to port. And we're going to look at the different arguments. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this and I'm going to copy it. And I'm going to take it down to our code. And I'm going to port it by just kind of putting it in here and looking at do these arguments match up. Localhost, okay, that's our host. My user, my password, my database. Okay, so that looks like we're gonna be changing how we connect to the SQL database. And then we need to make sure that the database exists by using the host and whatnot. So that's my next step. And to do that, I'm going to go over here into WOMP. And I'm going to look at the current database that's running. I think I'm actually using MySQL. So I'm going to look at the databases. So I want to actually have my database administrator, and that you can get through, I think it's my PHP admin that we can take it into. Okay, so username and password. Okay, I'm gonna, yeah, I forgot. I'll be back. Okay, so I signed in with the default password. It's root with no password. So, you guys have probably been working with that. So I just did a search for the PHP myadmin default password. So the login, you type in ROOT, which is root. And for the password of the database, we give it nothing. So that means that when we sign into the database from our connection code, the user is going to be root and the password is going to be nothing. And our local host, our host is going to be local host. We're that's where you would put the full URL if you were connecting to a database, located on another server or something. But what we want to do is we want to make it so that we're connecting to the database with the new way of doing things. Okay, so I say DB connect. Let's make sure that we are actually doing that code right, because it looks a little bit different, because one is object oriented and the other is actually this one. I think I maybe copied the wrong stuff, so let's go ahead and go back to that. Yeah, I don't know. There, that's the one I want. I want the function based one, not the object based one. Okay, so now we're just going to go ahead and do this. Okay, localhost is good. Root, nothing as a password. And then we're going to do this. The database that we're going to be working with is, looks like internships. And you guys may have already created that. I may need to add that. So let's do this. Let's do internships. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go over here to WAMP or PHP MyAdmin, and I'm going to make sure that I have my internships database there. So let's go ahead and, yeah, right here, my PHP admin, which is right here. Okay, we're using the MySQL database. It looks like I got guest book information. Oh, I got internships there. Cool. I did have it. It's got 4 columns. So no tables found in database. So there's no tables in the internships database yet. So I imagine that might be something that we are going to change. So if you needed to create that, you would just do a plus, and add it and type in internships. And this, you connect to the SQL server, but then you connect to the database of the SQL server, and inside that database will be your tables. So we have like the guest book, we have, visitors table and stuff like that. So right now we have the internships, but no tables. So it looks like that's up and running, and I should be able to connect to that database. So that means that I should not get any errors when I test that part of the code. So now this should actually come in as true. Now debugging PHP is a bit of a stinker. So what I will do is I will, it looks like we've already got the error handling there. So we can do that. You're going to have to port that too, by the way. Okay, so DB name internships. We're putting it there. We probably won't need this. But you know what? Let's actually just. That's fine. I just almost want to just put the DB name variable there, but you know what? We're ready to test. We want to just make sure that we can connect to the database through our local host using our root, empty password, and connect to the internships database. That's the direction I want to get you to, at least that point. And making sure that we got that. So if there was not an error, what we'll do here is we'll print here. We'll just print. We'll do echo. Yes. It works. Okay. If I were to take the time and I was really getting into PHP development, I would actually install the XE debug so that I could actually do a step through and debug this stuff, which would be eminently preferable than using print statements to do my debugging for me, which just sucks. But I don't have XE debug set up on this machine, and it takes hours to get it to work right. It's ridiculous. But here's what I'm going to do: is I'm going to go ahead and just run this one. And we're going to bring that up in the browser. And we see here that we have some errors right off the bat. So we have a problem on line 30. It looks like MySQL select DB. Okay, so evidently line 30 is being a stinker. I just want to test to see if we're actually able to do it, to connect. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go back to the code. Line 30, yeah, we know line 30 is this one right here. That's the one I told you that we needed to debug. So what we're going to do is we're going to comment it out for now. Just because I want to see if we were able to just connect. So you notice it died out and I wasn't even able to get to my echo. I should have known better. Should have known that wasn't going to work because we haven't ported it yet. So we need to use MySQL I. So let's go ahead and run this again. Save all. Okay. We don't need that. Okay, here we go. Oh, we connected. Woohoo! Yeah, that's good stuff. Okay, so it was able to connect to my internships. Database. We don't have any tables in it, but that takes us to our next step in our porting. So now what we got to do is we got to say, hey, let's get this working. Okay, so now we're going to go in and we're going to look at MySQL I select DB. So we're going to go ahead and do a search for MySQL I select DB. MySQL I select DB. Okay, there is MySQL I select DB. Here's the example. Now we're not using the object-oriented one. We're going to use the function-based one. So let's look for an example. Let's see. This is where we're going to select the internships database. MySQL I select DB. Here it is, right here. Okay, and we got to use our link, our database connection, and then what we want to the database that we are selecting, which is internships. So let's go back over here. And we are going to now our testing is going to see if this works. So we're going to put this in here. And we're going to port this to MySQL I select DB. But we got to make sure DB name, DB connect. Look at that. Those are inverted. So we got to port this so that internships is here. And DB connect, oh, that's right. Wait a minute. We need the link and then the database. So DB to connect has to be first. And then we're going to do a comma there. Okay, so now we've ported that. And we can comment that out. And now we're ready to test to see if that line of code works. If it does, then the next bit will be getting to our tables. Now, since this one has no table name, we don't have tables in here yet, but we're going to have a table that we call interns. And you're going to want to add an intern ID to that table. And it looks like intern name. You want to that table, you want to do a first name and a last name in it. So the way you can do that is just going into PHP MyAdmin. And I'm going to show you kind of how to do it. We're not going to get that far after. Let's not get too far ahead of ourselves. We still got to test that code, but let's at least get this far in so you guys kind of have an idea of how to set up your database. So our internships database needs an interns. No, that's not the one. An interns. Where's my NetBeans? An interns table. So we're going to go to internships. And we're going to go to create table. Let's start with 4 columns from now. No, let's do 3 because I know we need first and last. So we're going to call this interns. We're going to create the table. It's going to have an auto number. Okay. Oh, we got to hit go. Okay. Okay. So there we go. Interns. The table name is interns. Our first thing is going to be, let's see, what are we going to call this one? Let's go back to the code. It's called intern name. Okay, so actually it's called first. No. What's the query? Select star from table name where intern ID. It's intern ID. At least I'm pretty sure it's intern ID. Let's go ahead and do that over on this side. Intern ID. Okay. That is auto number. That should be our first auto number for our, we're going to have to set that as the key. And then the next one will be first. And then we'll have last for the names. Okay, and then we'll save it. Okay, and then this one we want to set for ID, so set primary key. So we're going to do, let's just do a search for PHP MyAdmin. Database set primary key. Adding a key to a need table in PHP MyAdmin. So what we got to do is we got to go in there and set it as primary. Okay. Let's go back to the database and let's put intern ID and make it a primary key. Okay, so now that is a primary key with an auto number, intern ID. Then we have our first and our last values. Nothing is in the database other than the table now called interns. So we have nothing in interns, but what we can do is we can actually go in and we can add information to it from here if we wanted to. So we can go into that interns database and go in here, and there's ways where we can do an add, plus and then add information into it. I believe we can do that through SQL. Insert. We'll do that in insert. Okay, so here we go. We want the value. We want to just add, because this one should automatically add things, but it looks like we can just add it here and just say John Doe. Oh, well, we got that. We got to go to our structure and set that, because where structure is wrong, this has to be an actual integer. So we're going to want to get rid of that and get rid of that. Oh, I should have just changed it. That's okay. You know what? Let's yeah. Let's go back to browse, or no, my structure, and we're going to go here, and I believe there should be a way where we should be able to add it to here. I've kind of lost where I was at. You know what? Let's just get this far and let's test the code. We go to insert or structure to we add it to the structure. I believe we can add to the table. So there's got to be something in here where I can just change. No. Change. No. You know what? PHP MyAdmin. PHP MyAdmin. Insert table column. Okay, so adding a column to an existing table in PHP. Okay, so you go to structure. Oh, underneath your existing columns, there's an add number columns. Oh, cool. Okay. Let's go back to that guy. Oh, there it is. Duh. You know, I'm just so blind sometimes. Okay, so I added 2 columns. This one's going to be a varchar, and this one's going to be a varchar. This one's going to be last, or no, first. This one's going to be last. Oh, long text is fine, but no. Varchar is good. You know what? Text. Text, yeah. Let's do text. First, last. Okay, then I'm going to say save. Good. I'm going to go browse. Structure. There it is. Oh, that is the wrong collation. We don't want Latin Swedish. Oh my God. You know what? That should be UTP-8 or something, whatever. But that's fine. We can change it by going here to collation. It should be UTF. Which one is it? I can't remember which one it is. Yeah, UTF-8. UTF-8 that's the standard. UTF-8 English. Where are you, UTF-8 English? Sometimes this stuff just drives me insane. Okay, you know what? Croatian, Czech, Danish, Estonian, general. Oh, Polish prison. There's no English. You know what? I think it's just general. I think UTF general will probably be good. It's just the character set that we're using. UTF general. Okay, let's do that. Save. That's fine. Okay, let's change that one to UTF general. I bet you I'm not picking the right one, but that's fine. I don't really care because we're just trying to connect to it for right now. UTF-8 general should be okay. Okay. All right, now we have a database we can work with. There is nothing in it, of course, but we can put stuff in it. And we can connect. So now what we want is, let's go ahead and go back to the code. And what I want to do is I want to test this bit of code right here that I've ported to connect to the internships database. And then we're going to connect to the table from the database. This is we'll get this far and see where we're at. So let's go ahead and go over here and let's see if we get to the yes. Let's bring up the browser. And we are able to connect to it. Cool. Okay. So then that takes us into getting the next bit of code working. So let's go back to our code. And this is ported. Okay, let's do our little indicator. We're going to get rid of that. Now what we want to do is we want to go over here and we want to see that we can, once we've determined that we're able to connect to the database, now we can connect to the table in the database. And the first thing it does is it just grabs the information from the database and throws it into the global session. And we can do a query, but here's what we're going to do. This is the query that we're going to do. This is the query string that we're going to connect to. This is what we have to parse. Okay, and I'm going to go, and I'm probably going to, this is what we have to port, excuse me. So we're going to do MySQL query and try to find that one. So I'm going to go ahead and find MySQL query. MySQL query, you know what? PHP.net is way better to look at for this kind of crap. But this is the database version. We want, because you see they do MySQL. We want the function example. There it is, right here. Here it is, MySQL query, and it looks like our first argument is the database link. Then we put in what we want to give it as far as what we're dealing with. So let's go ahead and import this. We got to remember link comes first, query string comes second. So I'm going to go ahead and go back to here, and I'm going to take this, import it to this, which it looks like DB. Look, they inverted it again. So it's the connection that goes first, then it's the string. Okay, and then we're going to assign that all equal to. So we're gonna actually take this guy up all the way, and now we have our ported code. It looks like here's what will happen is if it is unable to connect, it's going to get an error. If it connects but finds nothing from the query, meaning there's an empty database, or actually no, if there is no data, then it'll just output that there's no data. So I think we can actually test this without doing anything as far as we don't need to do an echo, because we can determine from here whether it's working or not. Because if we get this, then it's connecting. It's just not, there's no data there because we haven't put any in it. But that's fine. We once it's connected, and if there's no rows, then it's going to print that value. And that's really all we want, is we want to verify that it's connecting and that it's asked for the data. It's asked for the table, the interns table, and the information it got back was nothing because there's nothing in that table, which is currently true because I just built the table. So let's go ahead and run this one. Then we'll go and see if that actually worked. Okay, so it looks like we have a problem on line 43. I may not be I think I forgot to save it. I probably forgot to save it. Yeah. No, it's fine. Okay, so the problem we had was on line 43. So that means that I'm going to fix a few things. Like this. We don't need. There's some issues here with this query string, I think. Yeah, there is some definite issues here. Select all from table name where intern ID equals. You know what? Where intern ID is equal to intern IDs in our session. Now that's kind of an interesting one. I just want to grab. It looks like the intern ID we're using for something, but that's something you guys may need to get into it. I just want to get you as far as connecting to the database and showing some data. It looks like line 40. It was line 43 that was the problem. let's do a Control Z and let's kind of see, because I'm thinking there's something going on here. That just does not look right, because we're saying where intern ID is equal to nothing, and you see that just kind of that lone semicolon there. I'm thinking that this is a book error that I may have posted. So let's go ahead and go back to chapter 8. Here we go. This is signed guest book. So let's see if there's any book errors for chapter 9. Okay, so yeah, there's some issues in here. There is incorrect placement of braces in available opportunity to PHP for the loop chapter 9 on check all typos. Okay, so it must be one of the loops in here that's a problem. Probably down in here. But what I want to get working first is just, I want to get line 43 working. So we may just end up going in here and making a change. Select star from table name. You know what? Let's make it really stupid simple. Now you guys do your reading and see if, there's a reason for it to be that way. But what we're going to do is we're going to select star from, and this is going to be just something you guys, when you finish your assignment, make sure you go and make that the way it's supposed to be, depending on what the assignment's, the context of what the assignment's doing. But for right now, let's just get something working. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to take that and I'm concatenate it to the table name. And now we want to see if line 43 actually works. So what we'll do here is we'll do an echo of our yes. Okay, now this is, because we're coming on an hour for video. I don't like to do more than an hour. And I just wanted to get you a start on porting this code. And, you're going to read it through your book and get the code formatted correctly from the book's intent. And that's one of the reasons why I gave you the solutions, is because you're going to port it and make it work. And it's, hey, it's going to be better than typing the dang thing in, because it's already got typos. So let's see if we're able to select the table name, which is interns, and have it come out so that we can get that information with the SQL string query. And so what we're going to do now is we're just going to do a save all, and we're going to do run and see if we got it. We did. Okay. It was able to connect to the interns table, and there's nothing in it now. But what you can do is you can add the data. You can add it through PHP MyAdmin. So you can add data to this. I believe you can go to insert, and I believe I think we'll just put the value 1 here. We'll do John, and we'll do Doe. I think we got to set it up for auto number, though. I don't think I got it set up for auto number. But now I put this data in, and I'm going to say go. Okay, so then it just writes the SQL code, and this is exactly the insert code that you would do in your PHP. It's so cool, because you just get the code that you need to do a certain step. So now in my interns, I actually have select star from interns, and it should, showing rows 0 to 1, it should have actually inserted. But you know what? I'm wondering if it actually even worked. I may be missing a few things. Okay, so it is in there. I just tried to do it with another primary key.
So I'm going to put 2 in there, and I'm going to say go, and it's going to insert it. Okay. So 2, primary key of 2. Okay, let's see if browse will take me to select star from 0 to 1. 2 total. 2 total world. Oh, there it is. There's the output. There's my database stuff. Here's my auto. It's not auto numbered. You probably have to set it up for auto number. But when you do an insert, you can throw in the ID. You got the code for the insert for putting in the ID, but you want to probably set it up for auto number. Okay, so we got some data that we can play with. All right, so now here's where you would go now from here on out. We've identified that, yes, we can connect to the database. The next thing that you would want to go into is this part right here, which is where you show the interns in the database. So this is code that you're going to have to port and make it work, just like I showed you an example of today. So continue on with this and do your best porting. If you're having troubles, make sure, hey, I'm available once a week to come in and work with me during the day. Come in, say hello, be social. I'm not a bad guy. Okay. I'm not going to use the cliche, but in any case, have fun with this, guys. This is so much fun because you can actually build your own Facebook. This is the big leagues. So you're here. Be thankful for that. Alrighty. Let's call it. Finish it up on your own. Goodbye.